She said it so casually, like she was commenting on the weather. "You're just not ambitious enough for me." I remember her exact tone. Not angry, not cruel, just indifferent. Like she'd been rehearsing that line for weeks. And now, it finally came out. I sat there frozen, my fork halfway to my mouth. Dinner grew cold. So did the air between us. She didn't look at me when she said it, just kept scrolling through her phone as if my worth could be measured by the size of my LinkedIn profile. It wasn't the first time she hinted at it. Late-night comments about vision and goals, subtle digs when I talked about staying local. She'd compare me to her co-workers, the ones flying to tech conferences, pitching to investors, buying new cars every 6 months. I thought, she admired my consistency. Turns out she found it boring. She started coming home later, blaming it on meetings, deadlines, networking events. But the distance wasn't in the time. It was in her tone. She used to call me her rock. Now I was the comfortable choice. And comfort, apparently, wasn't sexy anymore. We met in college. She majored in marketing. I worked full-time and took night classes. I used to think she admired my hustle. Maybe she did, back when it was potential. But potential has an expiration date when someone's looking for more. And I guess I passed mine. She wanted flash. I offered foundation. She wanted speed. I offered stability. She wanted something she could post about. I was a man you built a life with, not a caption for her story. And that wasn't enough anymore. The night she left, she didn't cry. She packed her things in quiet layers, said she needed space to grow. I asked, grow into what? She just shrugged, said she didn't know, only that it wouldn't happen here, not with me. She didn't slam the door. She didn't curse me out. She kissed my cheek, called me a good man, and disappeared into the night like I was just another chapter in her personal development book. That hurt more than screaming would have. Because kindness used like that cuts deeper. I sat on the floor for hours after she left, surrounded by her ghost, traces of her in every corner, the half-used shampoo, the coffee mug she never washed. I didn't cry that night, not because I was strong, because I was numb, frozen in disappointment. But something changed when the sun came up. I looked in the mirror and didn't see a failure. I saw a man who gave everything and was still standing. I saw calloused hands, tired eyes, and a fire buried under resentment. And for the first time in years, I felt dangerous. That morning, I made coffee like I always did. Same chipped mug, same bitter roast. But everything tasted different. Like purpose, like pressure, like something had snapped and now all that was left was action. No more explaining myself, no more chasing approval. I opened my laptop and for the first time I didn't scroll aimlessly. I typed, how to start a business with no money. The screen lit up with videos, blogs, and tutorials. I knew I didn't have the funds, but I had something better, a reason. I watched videos at 1.5x speed. I took notes like my life depended on it, because it kind of did. I remembered every time she rolled her eyes when I talked about business ideas. Every time she smirked at my budget spreadsheet. Every "that's cute" when I shared a dream. Those memories became fuel. I started small. Auto parts, the one thing I knew inside and out. I'd worked enough warehouses to understand inventory, shipping, supply chains. I just had to figure out how to run it myself. No boss, no office, just grit and late nights. I named it Second Gear, because that's where I felt I was, stuck, but ready to accelerate. I bought a $12 domain, signed up for a free trial on a storefront site, and listed what little I had from my garage. Old filters, tools, parts I could clean up, anything that could be sold. The first week I made one sale, $42. It felt like $1 million, not because of the money, but because someone out there believed in something I created. She never even asked what I wanted to build, but a stranger clicked buy. I Worked 2 jobs after that, warehouse in the morning, packing orders in the evening, learning SEO and email marketing at midnight. I slept 4 hours a night, ate cold leftovers, lost weight, but gained drive. I stopped answering texts, stopped watching shows, stopped waiting for someone to notice me. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was building, one part at a time, one sale at a time, one version of myself at a time. Month 1, $93. Month 2, $300. Month 3, $700. By month 6, I had made more from second gear than I made at the warehouse. No loans, no shout-outs, just blood and bandwidth. I took a deep breath and quit my job. No announcement, no speech, just a quiet goodbye to a place that paid my bills, but never my dreams. I walked out of that building feeling 10 feet tall, because here's what they don't tell you. Ambition doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it wears oil-stained jeans and walks home with torn hands and a plan no one else sees. But when it finally works, they'll call you lucky and you'll just smile. I didn't post about it, didn't make a grand announcement. My progress lived in spreadsheets, shipping labels, and early morning emails. I wasn't chasing applause anymore, just momentum. It felt better that way, undeniable, even in silence. I rented a small office space, cheap, slightly run down, but it had 4 walls and potential. I scrubbed the floor myself, painted the walls a soft grey, set up a folding table and my old laptop. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I built shelves from Craigslist wood, labeled every bin by hand. My label printer became my best friend. I shipped orders every morning and answered customer emails at night. I learned to design my own logo, run my own ads, and talk like a CEO because I was. I remember the first big order, $200. I reread the email 5 times. Then I laughed, out loud alone, because it hit me this wasn't just working. It was becoming something real, something I didn't need anyone's permission to keep going. My circle got smaller. People I once called friends disappeared when I stopped showing up to parties, when I said no to happy hour. But the truth is, I didn't need loud nights anymore. I had found a quieter kind of high, the kind that wakes you up at 4 a.m., eager. I still thought about her sometimes, not with bitterness, more like curiosity, wondering if she ever thought of me when her Uber pulled up to some high-rise, if she wondered what I was doing when her life stopped feeling so shiny. I doubted it. But it didn't matter. The business kept growing. Word of mouth spread. I reinvested every dollar. Didn't buy a new car, didn't upgrade my phone, just stacked, saved, built, and watched as ambition, the thing I supposedly lacked, became my fuel. By the end of the year, I had employees, people relying on me, young guys who just needed a shot, the same way I once did. I trained them myself, paid them more than minimum, told them the same thing I told myself. You are not your resume. And then came the feature. A local magazine picked up my story, from warehouse to warehouse owner. They called me an example of resilience. I smiled politely during the interview, but part of me wanted to say, actually, I was just underestimated. That part burned the brightest. The article got shared online. Old classmates messaged me. Even some of her friends liked the post. But she never reached out. No congrats, no I'm proud of you. Just silence, and honestly, I preferred it that way. Because the best kind of revenge isn't proving someone wrong out loud. It's becoming someone they'd never even have the courage to approach again. It's doing it so quietly, so consistently, that your existence itself is the headline they never expected to read. I remember the exact moment I saw her again. It had been nearly 2 years. I was walking out of a supplier meeting downtown, wearing a navy blazer and jeans, my version of business casual. She was coming out of a coffee shop. We both stopped. We both stared, and neither of us knew what to say. She broke the silence first. Wow, you look different. I smiled, nodded. So do you. She was thinner, paler, eyes a little dimmer than I remembered. She still had that polished look, but something in her posture had softened. She wasn't standing tall anymore. She was bracing. We did the small talk thing, jobs, life. She said she was in transition, which I knew was code for laid off. She asked what I was doing now. I told her I ran a business. She tilted her head. You always wanted that, didn't you? I didn't answer that, because she never asked me what I wanted back then. She just told me what I wasn't. And now, here she was, searching my face for something familiar, like maybe I was still the man she left behind. But I wasn't. She mentioned her ex-boss, the one she left me for. They didn't work out. He moved cities. She stayed behind. Things didn't go how I thought they would, she said quietly. I nodded again, didn't gloat, didn't smirk, just listened. She said she was freelancing, doing what I can to stay afloat. I asked if she liked it. She shrugged. It's fine. Lonely, though. I said, yeah, I remember that feeling. She looked down. I didn't mean it as a jab, but the silence said it all. There was a pause. Then she asked if we could grab coffee sometime. Catch up properly. I smiled again, this time politely. Maybe. Things are really busy now. And I meant that, because I didn't have space in my schedule for people who didn't believe in me when it mattered. She walked away slowly, turned back once, and I knew what that look meant. It wasn't nostalgia, it was realization. She had traded gold for glitter, and now all she had left was dust and memories. I got in my car, leaned back in the seat, and let out a breath. I didn't. No, I'd been holding, not because I missed her, but because I had finally seen her through clear eyes. She wasn't a loss. She was the push, the one that forced me to rise, and rise I did. Every late night, every early morning, every sale, every setback. I carried her words, not ambitious enough, like fuel in my veins. And every time I thought about quitting, I pictured her walking away. It kept me moving, because when someone tells you you're not something, you have two choices: believe them or build yourself. And me? I built something so solid, so undeniable, that she couldn't help but look back. I never set out to prove her wrong, not really. At first, I just wanted to survive without her. But somewhere along the way, survival turned into building, and building turned into healing. Every product shipped was one less piece of pain. Every dollar earned, one more step toward peace. The office started to feel like a second home. I added plants, hung quotes on the wall, played jazz in the background. People joked it felt like a studio apartment. I liked it that way. Warm, focused, intentional. Everything my old life lacked. My team grew. 4 employees became 10. I handpicked every one. Men and women who'd been told no too many times. People passed over, underestimated, unseen. They reminded me of myself. I told them, your story doesn't end where someone walks away. That's just the start of the next chapter. One guy, Chris, he had been laid off twice, told he was too quiet to lead. I made him manager of shipping. Within months, he streamlined our system and tripled our efficiency. All he needed was a chance. Ambition isn't loud, it's relentless. We launched a new product line, custom kits for hobby mechanics. It exploded. Orders poured in from all over the country. People sent photos of their finished cars, their rebuilt engines, their weekend projects made possible by what we sold. It wasn't just parts, it was pride. I started getting invites to speak, business podcasts, local events, even a university panel. Each time I told the same story. I wasn't built for flashy, I was built for consistent. And the room always went quiet because truth doesn't need volume. One day after an event, a young guy came up to me. He was shaking, said he'd just been dumped. She said he lacked drive. I looked him in the eye and said, "Good, now you've got nothing holding you back." He smiled like it was the first time he believed that. I gave him my number, told him to send me his idea. I never expected to be that guy, the one others looked to. I was just the man left behind, turned entrepreneur out of heartbreak. But that's the thing about pain. If you let it, it sharpens you. If you channel it, It builds empires. I took a weekend off, first one in years, went hiking, alone, no reception, no emails, just trees, sky, and the sound of my own breath. I sat on a rock overlooking the valley and thought, she'll never see this version of me, and I was okay with that. She didn't get to know the man I became. That wasn't her reward. She had her chance, and she gave it up because I didn't sparkle enough on paper, but the paper didn't matter, the man did. The truth is I never forgot her words. They followed me into every meeting, every pitch, every long night where I wanted to quit. Not ambitious enough. It was never a wound. It was a whisper. And I learned how to turn it into a weapon, one that never left scars, only results. I had a consultant just to push further. He walked into the office and said, "This is bigger than you think." He showed me what I was missing, how I could automate, expand, scale. It felt terrifying at first, but I was done being afraid of growth. Growth was how I stayed free. We rebranded the site, upgraded every product photo, streamlined the back end. The company started to feel like a machine, lean, efficient, evolving. And people noticed, not because we were flashy, but because we were real. Orders doubled, then tripled. We had to move into a bigger warehouse. I walked the space before we signed the lease, ran my fingers along the empty metal racks, closed my eyes and saw the shelves full, saw my crew busy, saw what used to be a dream, now undeniable. I thought about calling my parents, telling them about everything, but they'd always said the same thing. Just get a stable job and keep your head down. They never understood what I was building, still don't, but that's fine. They raised a builder. That was enough. One afternoon I got a message on Facebook from her. "Congrats on the article, that's huge." No question mark, no apology, just a passive compliment, like she didn't walk out when I had nothing. I read it, didn't respond. I didn't need to reply because everything I was doing was the reply. Every warehouse shelf, every employee, every new milestone. That was the answer. And I knew she saw it. I knew she felt it. A month later, we hosted a job fair. I watched people line up at our booth, resumes in hand, some nervous, some hopeful. And in that crowd, I saw her. Hair pulled back, simple blouse. She didn't see me, but I saw everything. She spoke to one of our hiring staff. I overheard it. "I'm looking for anything steady." Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered, more human, and I didn't feel superior. I felt solid, because full circle doesn't always mean revenge. Sometimes it just means clarity. She didn't get hired, not because I told anyone. We simply weren't a fit anymore, not professionally. Not personally, not spiritually. She was a ghost from a life I outgrew, and that ghost no longer haunted me. We hired someone else that day, a single mom who'd been out of work for a year. She cried in the break room after getting the job, said no one had taken a chance on her. That moment meant more to me than any sales milestone, because I remembered being overlooked, and I swore I'd never be that kind of boss. I gave her a raise within 2 months. She earned it. She showed up early, learned fast, and treated the business like it was hers. I saw in her what no one saw in me back then. Potential, without polish. Strength without noise. Every time I drove by my old warehouse job, I'd glance over and smile. Same parking lot, same rusted-out sign. And yet, that place once felt like my entire world. Funny how small things look when you grow past them. Didn't leave that job bitter. I left it to become someone bigger. A podcast host reached out for an interview. He called me a blue-collar founder. I liked the sound of that. We recorded the episode in one take. I told my story plainly. No drama, no exaggeration. Just a guy who got left behind and refused to stay there. The episode went viral. People from all over the country sent messages. "Man, I needed to hear this. My girlfriend said the same thing to me. You gave me hope." I read every single one, because I had been them, and they needed to know it was possible. Got invited to speak at a conference, the same one she used to beg me to attend with her. Only this time, I wasn't in the audience. I was on stage, my name on the banner, microphone in hand, a room full of people listening to the man who once wasn't ambitious enough. After my talk, a man came up to me. Older guy, weathered hands, kind eyes. He said, "I built a life fixing cars. My wife left me for someone with a suit. You just told my story." We shook hands for a long time. Neither of us said much after that. We didn't have to. Some pain is shared in silence, some victories too. I never built this business for revenge, but I won't lie. Watching the life she once wanted grow without her in it, there was a sting to that truth, a kind of justice the world rarely gives out, and I felt it, quietly, deeply, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. I saw her one more time, outside a store, grocery bags in hand. She looked tired, not broken, just deflated. She glanced up, caught my eye, nodded once. And I nodded back. No smile, no words, just mutual recognition of what was and what would never be again. Because the man she walked away from no longer existed. In his place stood someone forged by fire, calm in storms, rooted in something far deeper than pride. I wasn't there to say, "I told you so." I was there to remind myself what it feels like to grow. There's a kind of power in not needing to speak, in not having to explain how far you've come. She saw it in my eyes. She didn't ask questions, didn't try to make excuses. We were two people standing on opposite sides of a bridge she burned a long time ago, and I had no reason to rebuild it. That night I went home, made dinner for one, and sat in the quiet of a life that didn't ache anymore. Not with emptiness, but with peace. I no longer waited for a message, a second chance, or even a thank you. I had already moved on, but now I had finally let go. Let go of her voice in my head, let go of the weight of her approval, let go of that question. What if she had stayed? Because now I knew the answer. I wouldn't be here if she had. Checked my phone. A message from one of my team leads. The company had hit a new record that day. Highest number of orders in a single week. I smiled, not because of the money, but because of the proof. We were building something real. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. No alarm, just instinct. I jogged through the neighborhood, the cold air biting my skin, reminding me I was alive, present, capable. By the time the sun came up, I had already planned the day's operations. Success doesn't sleep in, it shows up early. At the office, my crew surprised me. A small cake, 100K milestone, it said. I looked around the break room at the people who built this with me. They didn't know about her. They didn't know about the night I got left. But they were part of the healing. I gave a small toast. Said, this isn't just a company, this is a second chance for all of us. Some of them teared up. One guy clapped too early and made us laugh. It was perfect, raw, human, real. Everything that relationship never was. Later that week, I got an email. A cleaning company offering commercial janitorial services. The name rang a bell. I opened the website, and there she was in a staff photo, wearing a blue polo shirt with a mop in hand. She wasn't the owner, she worked for someone else now. I stared at the screen for a moment. Not with pride, not with spite, with understanding. Life has a way of putting people exactly where they're meant to be. She found hers, and I had long since found mine. I closed the tab and went back to work, because the truth is, you don't need revenge when you're fulfilled. You don't need to prove anything when your life becomes the evidence. She called me boring, said I lacked ambition. And now, she cleans the floors I built a future on. I stopped telling people my story unless they asked. Because if you have, To scream it, it probably hasn't settled inside you yet, but mine had. The pain, the rebuild, the quiet rise. It all lived in me now, solid, unshakable. One night I stayed late at the office. Everyone else had gone home. I walked the aisles of inventory, touching boxes, checking labels, remembering how this all started in my garage. Just me, a borrowed laptop, and the echo of someone who said I wouldn't make it. Now that echo was silent. I took out a journal I kept hidden in my drawer. First entry, the night she left. Second, my first sale. Each page after that, progress, wins, failures, lessons. I flipped through it slowly, hands steady. I had written my way out of the wreckage. Legacy doesn't come from noise, it comes from consistency. From the daily decision to show up even when no one claps, especially then. I never wanted fame. I just wanted freedom. And now I had it. I bought my first house. Not big, not flashy, but it had space for a dog, a view of the trees, and a backyard with just enough room for a fire pit where I could sit in silence. That was my version of success, peace on my terms. A reporter reached out to write a feature story. I agreed. This time, I wanted people to know what was possible, not for my ego, but for the men like me who were once called unambitious by people who never learned how to build without shortcuts. My story was theirs too. During the interview, she asked, "Do you ever think about the person who doubted you?" I paused, said, "Sometimes, but only to remind myself that I was always enough." She just wasn't patient enough to stay and see it. The reporter smiled, and I knew I'd said exactly what needed to be heard. The article went viral. Tens of thousands of shares. Men messaged me from across the world. Factory workers, teachers, cooks, single dads, all of them with one thing in common. They were building something quietly and being told it wasn't enough. I told every one of them, keep going. That same week I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, no return address. Inside, a short note. I was wrong. I hope you're happy. A. I didn't need a signature. I knew who it was from. I folded it once, then again, and dropped it in the shredder. Because closure doesn't always come through apology. Sometimes it comes through distance, through building a life so full that even the ghosts can't fit inside. I didn't reply. I didn't save it. Some memories deserve to fade, especially the ones that tried to bury you. I used to think success would feel like fireworks, like champagne bottles popping and applause echoing, but it didn't. It felt like a quiet morning with a cup of black coffee, knowing I didn't have to answer to anyone. It felt like peace, earned, not gifted. No confetti, no crowd, just me and the man I built from the rubble. My team had grown to 20 by then. We had full operations, a customer service line, and even health benefits. We held monthly meetings where I asked every employee, "What do you need from me?" Because I knew what it was like to be invisible to the people above you. That would never happen under my name. People often say, heartbreak makes you cold. But it didn't make me bitter. It made me focused. It showed me where to invest my energy, where not to beg for love. Because a woman who walks out on your potential was never built to handle your greatness. And that's not a loss, that's a filter. One night I had dinner with a friend from college. He asked me, if she came back now, would you take her out? For coffee? I didn't even think. I said no. Not because I hate her, but because I no longer recognize the man who would say yes. He's gone. I buried him under every sale and sleepless night. Growth rewires you. The things you used to crave, you forget them, the validation, the apology, you outgrow the hunger for it. Because what replaces it is so much richer, self-respect. I started mentoring young entrepreneurs, mostly men who had been told they were too safe, too quiet, too basic. I told them, start anyway. Don't wait for someone to clap. Don't wait for love to give you permission. Build it in the silence. Let the results do the talking. One guy asked me, "What was your lowest point?" I smiled and said, "When she called me unambitious," and I believed her for about 5 minutes, because that was the last time someone else's opinion held power over my path. After that, I walked forward and never looked back. I built habits around my healing. Morning runs, no phone before 9 a.m., reading instead of scrolling. I filled the void with discipline, and discipline gave me more than love ever had. It gave me a spine, a center, a future. Some nights I'd still remember the way she laughed, or the way she used to trace circles on the table when she was bored. But even those memories became distant, like scenes from someone else's life. She faded, not in one moment, but over 1,000 days of building without her. The hardest part of growth isn't the work. It's the detachment, learning to let go of the people who only knew the outdated version of you, who didn't stick around long enough to witness your evolution. They knew the seed, but never stuck around for the bloom. Some people build empires to prove someone wrong. I built mine to prove myself right. Right about my worth, right about my vision, right about the quiet kind of man who doesn't raise his voice, but raises standards. And that was the version of me she never got to meet. I once thought love was the greatest motivation. Now I know it's self-respect, because love can walk away. But what you think of yourself is the only thing you carry when the door closes. And I carried disappointment for a while, but eventually I traded it in for fire. I took a call from a corporate buyer last month. They wanted to acquire part of my business, offered a number I'd only dreamed of. I said no, because some things you build aren't meant to be sold. They're meant to become your legacy, a monument to your resilience. I thought back to the day I bought my first label, printer. I was broke, uncertain, scared, but I believed enough to spend that last $60 on something that said, "I'm not giving up." That same printer now sits on a shelf in my office, not because I use it, but because it reminds me where I started. Sometimes I wonder where she is now, what she tells people when they ask about me. Maybe she says, "We lost touch." Maybe she says nothing at all. Or maybe, just maybe, she watches quietly from a distance, realizing too late what she left behind. But I don't live in those thoughts anymore. They're just passing clouds, because this life I've built, it doesn't need her memory to justify it. It breathes on its own now, rooted in grit, watered with doubt, grown with time. There's a strength in building alone, in showing up when no one's watching, in choosing discipline over drama. That strength rewired me. I'm no longer the man who needed her validation. Now I validate others. I give them what I once craved, a reason to believe in themselves. I created scholarships for young tradesmen, funded small businesses, helped pay off a few employees' medical bills. Because what's the point of rising if you don't lift others with you? Every dollar I spend on them feels like healing the version of me who was left behind with nothing but a broken dream. I used to replay the night she left like a movie I couldn't turn off. But now, it's just a distant prologue, the kind that barely fits the narrative anymore, because the real story didn't start there. It started the day after, when I realized I didn't need to be chosen. I needed to choose myself. So I did. Every single day since, and with every sunrise, every order, every quiet win no one clapped for, I became someone she'll never understand. Not because I'm bitter, but because I built something she never believed was possible. Some stories end with someone coming back, apologizing, asking for a second chance. This one doesn't. She never came back, and I never wanted her to. Because the truth is, you don't need a witness to your growth when your life becomes the proof. I walk into my office every morning, not with a chip on my shoulder, but with peace in my chest. I built this, not from spite, but from the belief that you can rise quietly and still shake the world. The younger me wanted to be seen. The man I am now I'm good with being remembered by the right people, my team, my customers, my community. The ones who see value before success makes it obvious. They say the best revenge is success, but they're wrong. The best revenge is not needing revenge at all. It's smiling when you remember how far you've come. It's driving home with your windows down, music playing, and no one else's voice in your head, not even hers. Sometimes I see couples walking hand in hand, and I wonder if they've had that conversation. The one where someone questions your worth. I hope they haven't. But if they have, I hope the one who heard it knows that their value isn't based on someone else's limited vision. I used to think closure needed words, that I had to hear, "I'm sorry." Now I know. Closure is when the pain no longer outruns your peace, when you stop checking your rearview mirror because you finally believe what's ahead is worth facing forward, and what's behind, just training. My life isn't perfect. Some days are still hard, but I never again wake up wondering if I'm enough. I don't shrink to fit someone else's idea of drive. I don't change my tone to sound more impressive. I don't chase love that walks away. Now I build, and I love who I've become while doing it. So to the man who's been told he's too boring, too safe, not driven enough, this story is yours too. You are not invisible. You are not lazy. You are not behind. You are just building in silence. Let them laugh. Let them leave. Let them say you're not going anywhere. Then build something they'll have to walk around in awe because they can't walk back into it. Not now, not after what they missed. Your ambition doesn't need volume, just consistency. And when the day comes that they finally look back and realize what they gave up, you won't be waiting. You'll be too busy living a life you built without them, and that life will never need their applause because you already clapped for yourself.